Hey, y'all, and welcome to episode 8 of the Muddling Through podcast. My guest today is my friend, former coworker, and former roommate, Kevin Grupe. In this episode, we talk about the insanity that is the university system, TV shows and the ubiquity of streaming services, and the juggernaut that is Disney. Hope you all enjoy. Kevin, how are you now?
Good. Good, and you?
Not so bad. So flat tire, huh?
Yeah. Heading on the way in here, hit the highway and just could not accelerate. I was like, this doesn't feel right, so I've had to pull over in Somersworth and find a gas station with pumps. Like, wasn't completely shot, didn't have to do any replacement of the tire, thankfully, but...
Yeah, no, I was headed out at like 4:00 in the morning, and my tire pressure light came on. I'm like, what? Oh. So yeah, that was a stop.
I've had a lot in my day. I've gotten pretty good at changing them, thankfully.
Yeah,
because of that. But
lots of practice.
Yeah, lots and lots of practice. At least back when I was my late teens, early 20s, and
just driving beaters.
Yeah, driving beaters, and then just having horrible luck with Jamie's car one year. She got 3 flats in 1 month, and that was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Rough.
Yeah, so she knows how to change them now too. Pretty quickly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So what's going on with you, man?
Not a whole lot, really.
Yeah.
I guess I've been really busy with work. When the bar that I work at is moving down the road. Much larger location that we're moving to, and so a lot of what I've been doing lately has just been making sure the current location is still running. Well, the higher ups are making sure the new place is ready to basically turn a key, open, and get ready for business.
Fair enough.
So lots of extra hours there, which is tiring, but it's at least not bad work.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoy what I do.
So are you pulling doubles or?
Not so much because we aren't really open for lunch. Okay. We're only really open for dinner. So, I mean, that said, when you're serving, bartending, 8-hour shift feels a lot longer than an 8-hour shift in retail does.
Just running around constantly.
Yeah, you basically get the same exertion in about 4 hours of serving, I feel as you would out of 8 hours of doing something in a retail setting, which are my two biggest pieces of experience in the workforce. I've only ever had one desk job back when I was in between high school and college, I think, and I did not like that. That was just not for me. It was very, very tiring because of the fact that I wasn't moving. It felt just not good physically. I'd like to actually be on my feet and doing things.
Where did you work?
It was a data entry place out in Pease that did what was it? Information on hotels that different corporate entities could use for scheduling for conferences and things like that, where they could put people up. It was a really, really niche thing, and it ended when there wasn't enough data that needed to be entered still in the area for the amount of people that we had. So they laid off most of the younger people and kept the people that actually were adults and actually needed money for things other than fun, which makes sense. I mean, it was me, one of my best friends in high school, and a couple other people we went to school with, and then 2 people that were probably in their mid-20s and were actually using that as a way to pay bills. So it makes sense as far as I'm concerned.
Did you transition? So you were there in between high school and college. Did you start working at Barnes & Noble as soon as you went to college?
Oh, no. I started my senior year of college. So at college, they definitely pull their little things on you. So my senior year, they got rid of my work study because they're like, what's he going to do? Obviously, he's going to finish his last year, which I only sort of did. But
Wait, so you were in work study? What is that?
So it's a job that you're given as part of your financial aid, essentially, where you put in maybe 15 hours a week tops, and you get paid money for that. So it's just I worked in a film equipment room for film students, signing things out, mostly just doing homework when it comes down to it.
Because you have the time.
Exactly. I had the time, and I had a place where I had to be, where there wasn't really anything else that I could be doing. And 5 years at Barnes & Noble, which had its ups and downs.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's good people you work for at that company. You work within that company. It's just the higher ups, the whole fact that it's a corporate environment.
Yeah, the corporation thing can get kind of sticky.
Exactly. 'Cause I mean, like, especially like at a company like Barnes and Noble, like for the most part, everybody in the higher ups in the company understands the frustrations too. But at the same time, you have to do what the employers tell you to do, what company tells you to do, and it's just really tough balancing that while still maintaining a good morale in a workspace.
Yeah, for sure.
Much happier now that even though I have two jobs, I'm working for small local companies. Like it just seems to be better for the all around feeling of the people that work there, and it's nice seeing more and more of those companies pop up too.
Mm-hmm. Especially over in Portsmouth.
Yeah, no kidding.
In
like,
a major way.
I mean, you definitely have a couple of restaurateurs in the Portsmouth and Greater Portsmouth area that own anywhere between like 4 and 10 restaurants, I think, or something like that. But at the same time, I feel like if your downtown environment, if the big guy, the big dog that's playing in the park, is still a local guy,
yeah,
like it's still someone that like people know their face, like I feel like that's a good thing you've got going for you. Like
right. Builds kind of a sense of community, maybe.
Exactly, yeah. Because I mean, like at the end of the day, like yeah, I want to say that like at least 6 restaurants and 1 brewery in downtown Portsmouth are all owned by one person. But at the same time, that person is an active member in the Portsmouth community.
Right.
Like, that's a lot better than just being like, oh, well, they're all run by such and such corporation or something like that. Like, it definitely is. You can definitely see it in the way that Portsmouth is as a city, too. Like, and I would even say that Portland, Maine's a similar way. If anything, more so. I mean, like, Portland, Maine's almost entirely independent businesses aside from gas stations and a couple supermarkets.
Huh. Can't say I've spent much time in Portland, but
really good food in Portland.
That's
really good food in Portland. It's mostly all I do up there is I eat food and visit breweries. Like lots of good food, lots of good beer, and lots of good views on the water. Like
fair enough,
gorgeous city.
So is that mostly what brings you up there? Is just visiting?
Yeah, I used to have a good friend that lived up there. She has since moved away from Portland. And I do go up there a lot less often now. But at the same time, like it's something that like me and Jamie like to do as a day off sort of thing. Like take a day trip up to Portland, especially because the city's also super dog friendly.
Yeah.
So we can also bring Arlo with us, which is very nice. Very, very nice. New Hampshire is not that dog friendly when it comes down to it. Which luckily he doesn't have to stay in a cage at home or anything like that. He's very well behaved when we leave him alone, but I always feel bad leaving him for like 10 plus hours by himself.
Fair. Yeah. At least he has a buddy now.
Yeah. Rhonda, the two of them definitely have a very good bond at this point. It's going to be really sad when they have to separate. Like, we've already talked about that. Like, when it happens, we're basically going to have to get a second dog because I'm pretty sure he's going to be super sad if he doesn't have the company afterwards.
And Loki's not going to cut it.
Oh my god. Yeah, no. Well, but Loki's definitely been interacting more positively with him also since Rhonda because Loki and Rhonda do a lot of playing, and he mostly just messed with Arlo back when it was just the two of them. Like, they didn't really interact a whole lot aside from him like parkouring off of Arlo's back every once in a while. But now that like Loki and Rhonda have been playing a lot, it's almost like it's helped teach Loki how to actually act around dogs. I mean, we still have to shut it down every once in a while because sometimes his claws come out, and when it comes down to it, even though both dogs are the size that they could easily just break that cat in half, when it comes down to it, the cat's more likely to hurt the dog than the dog is the cat because it's one thing I've always like read online seeing about like interactions between dogs and cats is that like although it seems like the cat's more in danger, oftentimes like when things get too rough, the cat can really do damage, especially to a dog's eyes. Right. Like they go right for the eyes to blind it as a defensive move, which is really sad. We don't want blind dogs in the apartment, which luckily no major issues there.
Fair enough. Yeah. What do you think of? So this is going to be like a complete like random topic, but it's been kind of it's been almost a year since I moved out.
Yep.
For those that don't know, Kevin is one of my old roommates. Lived with him and Jamie and Jake and Melissa over in Newmarket. But yeah, so we didn't. I don't think. Did we get a chance to talk when you guys or when you came over for the party on Memorial Day?
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
I was only here for like an hour, so I had to come straight from work. And
Right.
Jamie was still working at Native, so, and then she had to be at home very early, so she could go to bed early, so she could leave early for work.
Right. Fair enough. But no, I wanted to ask you about Avengers.
Oh yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was really good. I thought it was a very satisfying conclusion to that era of Marvel movies.
Yeah.
I honestly think that if you're just looking at it just straight on as a movie, I honestly preferred Infinity War to Endgame because I thought Infinity War functioned really well, a lot better independently than Endgame did. I thought that Endgame, though, like at this point, I mean, the franchise has been going on for over a decade.
Yeah.
Like, it's got fans that weren't even alive when Iron Man came out at this point. And when it comes down to it, something that big, with all those people involved in it, you know that if someone's going to go see Avengers Endgame, they've at least seen the other Avengers titled movies, if not most of the rest of the MCU. And so I think it does get a pass on that because even though it's a specific audience that it's targeted to, that audience is so large at this point that they're able to actually make a movie where like literally everything is inside references. And they were able to make a very satisfying conclusion to help write off the actors whose contracts are up and aren't renewing, and to open up the world, bring it into what's essentially present day finally, because since it takes many years to make a film, and when you look at the actual chronology of the MCU, it's all over the place with what takes place where, despite the fact that it's not how things were released, like the fact that Iron Man 2 takes place before the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's not the way it came out. It was Iron Man, then Incredible Hulk. But, so I thought that was a really well done conclusion to all of that. I was a little bit, well, I guess not disappointed would be the word, but one thing that I was very glad I did not do the whole marathon leading up to it because of how much of it was going back to previous movies, that I thought all that stuff was super cool.
Yeah.
But if I had just like done one of the things like in the theaters where they literally just played like 60-hour marathon, if I had sat through 60 hours, only like taking a couple naps and kept myself awake for all that time, and then I watched Endgame, and there were so many scenes that I'd literally just watched in the last 60 hours of my life, I would have felt
just
really gypped. But instead, I found it to be really rewarding.
Yeah.
Because I didn't do that.
Right. Yeah. I kind of, I feel a little bit of that because I was doing like a weekly Marvel movie night.
Yep.
Where, you know, kind of did some of it like when Infinity War came out, but did like, we decided to do it, I think 15 weeks out. So we're like, all right, we got to cut out a couple movies along the way here.
Yep.
But no, so I got a little bit of that. Like, oh, I've been here recently.
Yeah.
Which is, it's fine. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I definitely hear you on the quality thing and how it really, like it. Yeah, it does. It definitely gets a pass for being the last movie, like to being the end cap, or the capstone, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And just like finishing or tying off all the like threads left from the previous like 19 movies.
Yeah.
So. And I think overall it did a really good job of that. Like occasionally it got like a little, it's like, all right, I get it, but like,
yeah,
you don't have to really push it that hard. But yeah, no, overall I really enjoyed it.
There was one thing that really bothered me with it though.
Really?
When Thanos brings himself into like the current present day for everybody, he seems to speak as though he remembers everything that happened in Infinity War and leading up to his own death. And I understand that he witnessed everything that Nebula saw, but she did not. She wasn't just following him around.
Yeah,
and
she certainly didn't see.
And I thought that was really awkward. But at the same time, it didn't really take away from the movie that much for me. Like, when I was thinking about the next day, I was like, what was it that bothered me? I can't remember. Well, it can't have been that important. Like,
yeah, so you were a film student, right?
Yeah.
What made you decide to go into film?
Mostly just that I liked movies, and it was film studies, which turned out to be a lot more reading than even being an English student would have been.
Okay.
It was more of like research papers rather than actual like novels and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those things where it's like I went to college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and so I took a smattering of classes, and I just chose a film major because I liked the film classes. Intro film class I took the best, and there's only so long you can go being undeclared.
Mm-hmm.
Probably would not make the same choice if I would go back and do it again. I mean, I probably would have, in all honesty, liked to have taken some time off before attending college, in all honesty, to figure out what I wanted to do with myself, rather than going off and signing away enough debt to last me until I'm very old. On just whatever the next step, as it were, of education is. Like, and when it comes down to it, like, a lot of people that I knew in school are working a lot of similar jobs to me, like working retail, working at restaurants and bars. And when it comes down to it, it's almost like that extra step of education, unless you went into it with an express goal of what you're going to use it for coming out, mostly just translates to like a high school diploma plus.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes down to it, like, I mean, I guess it can make the difference on how much you do get paid at a job that you're going to, even if it's nothing to do with the field that you studied.
Right.
But like,
it's like, yeah, I have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, and I feel like it's like a lot of employers just look to see that you have completed college rather than what you studied. And granted, like, the whole idea behind college is that you are studying something that you would like to turn into your career once you exit college.
Right.
And there's certain things like, and I feel like there's definitely certain career paths that makes a lot of sense with. I mean, like, you go to college, you study engineering. Right. Obviously, you get placement in the engineering force. Like, you study coding, same thing. Business, then you have like things that you can do afterwards using that. But like with a lot of other things that you can study and major in, I feel like it's a lot more just generic. I did this, unless you have an end goal past that. Like, I know one thing that we talked about in one of our English classes in college is that English major is actually a very common pre-law major.
Interesting.
Because basically, like, when you're going into law schools, if you show you have an English degree, it means that you know how to critically and analytically read things. Which is very important in the field of law.
Right.
And so, like, it's not the only pre-law degree that people often chase, but it tends to be a fairly common one and a common thing to do with an English degree, besides become an English teacher, essentially. Which I didn't even think about until that was spoken to me. I'm like, oh, interesting. I mean, like, I have no desire to be a lawyer, but
right. It's interesting though to know that that's like a pretty common stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm listening to this podcast by a guy named Jocko Willink. He's like an ex-Navy SEAL.
Mm-hmm.
And he's actually an English major as well.
Like, oh, yeah.
Like, he went into the SEAL teams, and then, like, as he was, like, beginning to transition into becoming an officer, like, he's like, all right, I'm going to go to school now. And because of all the paperwork that's involved, and, like, like, drafting plans for operations and, like, writing reports about, like, what happened, or, like, you know, promotions and, like, disciplinary stuff. He's like, all right, well, I really want to have like a super like tight grasp of the English language and like be able to express myself like super well in written form. So, you know, he became an English major, which is like not something that you usually associate with the SEAL team.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's, yeah, college is weird like that. And I guess it's like one of the and student loans are like one of the few loans you can get that you can't declare bankruptcy from.
Yeah.
Which is like, what is this? Like, who designed the system?
Yeah, and I feel like looking at like just the history of the cost of college and of loans, like I feel like nowadays more and more people go to college in the first place, but at the same time, college is a lot more expensive, even if you're factoring in inflation and things like that. Like, it's crazy the amount of money that it costs. Like, even if you're getting like tuition breaks or things like that, and it's rough.
Yeah, I had a friend who was like, did some community college and like taking online classes, and I'm gonna get out of it pretty good. I'm only gonna have $30,000 in student loans. I'm like, well, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a lot less than other people do, but
it's still a lot of zeros.
And it's like it's one of those things where college is presented as like the only option.
Yeah,
it's like once you finish high school, you go to college, and it's always like go to university.
exactly.
It's not like, okay, get your gen eds at a community college, and then like see what kinds of things interest you, and then like specialize at university. It's always like you have to go to a single school for 4 years, or 8 years, 12 years, like whatever it ends up being. And it's never really. It's like, yep, we realize that you work better with your hands. Like you're more of a tactile learner, and and that sort of thing. But rather than point you in the direction of the trades, we're gonna saddle you with student loans that you're going to be paying off for the rest of your life.
Exactly. And plus, I mean, like I was actually just talking to a fairly new coworker who is a trained mechanic for specifically German-made cars, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like my credit was great, like 'cause I paid off my loans in a year," and I was like, "What?" And he's like, "It's like, well, I went to a trade school and then I specialized in German engineering, which you make a good amount of money fixing German cars," and I was like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
That's
like. Wish I had any desire to work on cars. Like,
is there something that you'd like to do? Like, if you had to pick a trade, what's one that you'd?
I've got no idea, really. I mean, like, I know for a long time at least, like, I probably would have said like specifically. I mean, not really a trade even at this point in time, but I mean, like, I know for a long time I definitely wanted to like be a brewer of beer. But like now that I'm at least a lot closer to that world, I realize although that might be really nice and really cool, brewers do not get paid much at all.
Yeah.
Like, which is why there's a lot of times like I'll be talking to like a rep from a certain company or something like that, and a lot of times they start out in the brew house and then they go elsewhere in the company because it pays more money, and at the end of the day, everybody has to pay their bills, and if selling the product pays more than making it in the first place, especially if you already have like the background knowledge on that, then that's great. But I mean, at the same time, it definitely does depend company to company as well. But at the end of the day, I have no idea what sort of trade I would necessarily want to like learn or pick up. Like, I'm not that big on like cars and not that big on like computers or anything like that. I mean, like, my computer is a Chromebook and I have a cell phone and I have a bunch of essentially defunct social media accounts. Like, I tend to stay like fairly private on the internet, just because it seems awkward to me. It feels really weird to just be like put out there like that.
Yeah. Is that something that you've kind of come to, or is that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I started out like a pretty active user on Facebook and everything like that, but then like as I've gotten older, it's been one of those things where I'm just like, I know that yes, there's like different privacy settings and everything like that, but at the same time, like, how well do they really work? And like,
just companies data mining constantly.
Exactly. I mean, like the fact that like I will probably after this get advertisements for podcasts on my phone and things like that. Like, it will pick up the fact that even before I said the word podcast, that this is what we're doing right now based off of certain keywords, and like the fact that like when you were running D&D at the house and like Jamie's phone just like suggested a Bitmoji for her Snapchat that was D&D, but Dungeons and Dragons was never spoken. D&D was never a spoken word. I mean, Roll for Initiative was spoken,
Yeah.
though, and that's probably a keyword that it picked up on. I was like, oh, I see that you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. You might want to use this Bitmoji to express what you're doing right now. And yeah,
kind of scary.
it's crazy, like how much our phones already listen to us, and then on top of that, like I guess it's not necessarily that I don't trust technology. It's just like it's one of those things where I don't like to be super, super plugged into it. Like I like to still be in the real world.
Right. And you have too much already of like people not really interacting with each other. Like
exactly,
you go out, and I think we've experienced this as well. You know, you go out to dinner, and while everyone's waiting, it's just like everyone whips out their phone.
Oh, exactly.
And it's like, you know, we kind of lost. I mean, I think our group was a little different, where we did have like when we would go out, like we did have stuff to say to each other.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty common occurrence. Like
oh yeah, I'm not completely innocent of doing that myself. I do that all the time, and also I've found that I'm pretty practiced in looking at my phone and carrying on a full conversation at the same time. Doing something, not necessarily reading, but like playing a very simple game or something like that. Yeah. Like, and because that's oftentimes what I use to kill time on my phone. I don't read a whole lot of articles or something like that, but I always have like random little like RPGs or like different small things like that I'm doing. It's just super simple things. That's basically fiddling.
Yeah.
Like it would be the same thing in like a fidget spinner or something like that, or fidget cube. Like something to keep my hands busy. But I don't know why it's necessarily something that I need. It's not something I needed growing up.
Yeah.
Like
you kind of made your own fun, but
exactly.
I guess we're. Would you call it spoiled or conditioned?
What do you mean?
Like. Well, I mean, I guess it doesn't really. I think being spoiled is being conditioned. So like our brains are conditioned at this point to require stimulus.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like just constantly. So we're always, you know, checking notifications and scrolling through the social media and just requiring this input like constantly.
Yeah, and then there's also like as far as social media is concerned, like when you make posts, there's the like actually scientifically measured like dopamine hit you get from people liking and appreciating your posts. And although I don't really do much on Facebook, I am on Reddit pretty frequently. I do like that because it reminds me a lot of like the old message boards from the 90s and things like that. And it is like at least sort of anonymous. But like whenever I make posts or make comments or something like that, I definitely always like get super excited when I get notifications that someone replied to them and then look and see like how many upvotes it got and everything like that. And it's totally a thing. Like I definitely understand it, and it's just, but at the same time, it's really awkward, like how wired society is now, and like, and the fact that there's like straight up like anyone born now is born to a very different world, a very more technologically integrated world, and it's weird to think that like it's not that long ago that things were very different.
Yeah.
Like
it's not that long ago where your cell phone was not connected to the internet.
Exactly. And you had certain bars and you had a strict amount of minutes that you had to do things. And if you could go on the internet with it, it cost you a lot of extra money on the account. Like, and I mean, like, and then before that, like, cell phones weren't even a thing. Like, I remember when, like, I was young, like, one of the things that we got for, I think, Christmas from my grandmother was a car phone.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
With a giant antenna coming off of the roof of the car. Like,
of course.
That was before even the giant brick cell phones, because that's like the smallest that they can make something like that. Like all the portable phones at Barnes and Noble and stuff like that. Like,
yeah.
But that's like, that was like only like 20 years ago now. Like, which is weird to think that's even been that long.
Right.
Like, it's weird looking back and realizing like how long ago things that don't feel like they were that long ago in your own life were. But at the same time, it's crazy seeing how much technology has advanced in even the last 10 years,
Yeah.
let alone the last 20. Like,
for sure.
it is like exponential. And then when you look at like technology before that, it's like, it's just not the same. I mean, like, it's crazy how much we were able to do in the earlier days too. Like, and the fact that like we went to the moon with less computing power than a calculator.
Yeah.
Like that, like theoretically speaking, like we have the computing power. Everybody walks around with the computing power in their pocket to send multiple ships to the moon. And we mostly use it to like take pictures of funny things that we see and like look at memes on the internet and stuff like that. And it's just so weird when you step back and look at that fact. Like,
yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but it's just weird. Like, it's crazy to think of how far technology has come in this world, and the fact that like certain things that were only super specialty things that were essentially considered to be trades of some variety, are now like commonplace things that is just there in everyone's life, and it's weird to think about what that might turn into in another 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, or longer than that. Like, we're advancing very quickly as a civilization and as a species, and it's really, really curious to see what becomes of that, because if we keep going at this pace, by the end of our lives, the world's going to be an insanely different place.
Completely different.
Like, completely different. Like, we're on the verge of a lot of huge breakthroughs coming up soon anyways. I mean, especially through people like Elon Musk. Like,
that guy's crazy.
Could be a Bond villain.
Could be. Yeah, no, I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast with him on it. And he's like, he's one of those guys where you listen to him talking, you're like, he is so smart that I can't comprehend how smart he is. Like, I'm not smart enough to understand how smart that guy is. Because, like, he thinks of things, like, on a completely different level.
Yeah.
And he's, like, trying to explain. And, like, Joe Rogan's a smart dude. Like, he's pretty, quick on the uptake and whatnot. But, like, even Joe Rogan was kind of like, I'm going to need you to unpack that for me.
Yeah, I have not listened to or watched the Elon Musk Joe Rogan podcast. I've heard that it is very impressive just to see that basically that man's brain is just wired differently and
completely
probably more efficiently than most people's are.
Yeah, he's just, it's like I don't want to call him a mad genius, but like he's not you can't call him a normal person.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing normal about Elon Musk. Like, he's still, as far as we know, he's still a human.
Yes. I mean, it's impressive, like, how little of his private life seems to be available for somebody as famous as he has become.
Right.
Like, good for him.
I mean, I don't think he's married. I don't know that he has children,
I know that he has been married.
Because
his ex-wife is one of the fairly leading actors in the first 2 seasons of Westworld.
Okay. Which one?
Tallulah Riley. I'm blanking on her character's name right now. She plays the host that welcomes William to the park in the pilot.
Okay.
Like the tutorial host that like walks you through all the stuff.
Interesting.
They've actually been married twice and apparently are still very good friends.
Well, fair enough. I mean, it's not like Bronn and Cersei's actors who like literally have it in their contract that they can't be in
right.
the same scene.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It's not oh, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that although it was definitely far from perfect, I think that the internet response is very
vastly unwarrantedly
aggressive. I mean,
everybody's so salty.
Everyone is so salty, and they're acting like it advocated for child murder or something like that. Like, and no, it just wasn't a perfect ending. Like, there are almost no shows that end perfect, and
Yeah.
there's even less shows where the last season or the last two seasons are the best seasons of the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a peaking point in any given television show, and usually it's not the very end.
Right.
Like, and as far as this is concerned, I mean, I think that a lot of the issues that arose from it weren't even from not having source material. Some of the best episodes of the entire show were from after they were past the books. I mean, like Hold the Door and Hard Home and the Battle of the Bastards, I believe, are all post source material.
Really?
And those are all just absolutely incredible episodes of the show. And like, and so I don't think that's the issue. I think the big issue is just communication and contract budgeting between the showrunners and HBO, where the showrunners wanted to only have it be 7 seasons because there's going to be 7 books.
Yeah.
HBO wanted them to go like basically as long as they physically could. And so I remember there was a lot of negotiations back after season 6. They're like, nope, next season's the last one. And they're like, no, it can't be. And they finally like whittled them down to being, well, we're going to have 2 more seasons. They're going to be shorter seasons, longer episodes. And so I think that like that kind of messed around with some things. I definitely think that part of it was also, it seemed like they slowed down their adapting of the existing source material midway through the series to try and have more published so they could work off of the new book. And as far as that's concerned, that's fine, except for the fact that means that you have to make up for that time somewhere else in the series. And I feel like a lot of it was a lot more behind the scenes stuff that was really more of an issue way earlier on in this last season. And I do think that it seemed like things were very rushed, but I do think that they definitely tied plenty of things up in ways that made sense as long as you like really look back. Like I did do a full rewatch of that series right before the last season.
Yeah.
And I thought a lot of the stuff that seems to be considered to be outlandish is not nearly as outlandish as people are saying that it is. And like I said, this last season it was far from perfect.
Yeah.
It wasn't even necessarily very good.
Right.
But at the same time, I've definitely seen worse endings for shows. Lost comes to mind. And I've seen people comparing the ending of this season of Game of Thrones to the ending of Lost. I honestly don't think that's very fair because one thing that Game of Thrones did that Lost did not do is it tied up every loose end. And whether you like the way that it was tied up or not, they at least did that.
Yeah.
And so I definitely think that I don't necessarily think that they deserve more credit, but maybe less flack for how things panned out in the end. Like, it's such an aggressive response that I feel like the fans have had to it. And it's really not completely warranted. And so much is dumped on specifically just the showrunners.
Yeah.
Where some of the things that they're blaming them for was completely out of their control.
Right.
Like the fact that like in one scene Daenerys wears 2 different wigs. Like
people are mad about that.
Yeah, when she's arriving at Winterfell and it's like a shot to her, cut away somewhere else, and a shot back to her, and like her hair's in a completely different style.
Okay.
And
I mean, there's some weirdness coming in from like just like stuff being left on the set.
Oh
but,
yeah,
like, that's not really a showrunner thing.
Exactly. That's
your continuity person.
That's costuming. That's your continuity. That's your editing. Like there's so many other people whose fault that is.
Yeah.
And I feel like the 2 showrunners have become the massive scapegoats when at the end of the day, like there's definitely things that they could have done better. And I'm not necessarily saying that like any one person is to blame for shortcomings in the season. I also feel like people are treating this like it's something more than just a television show.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, it's just a television show. And people clamoring that it should have had like 4 more seasons. I don't think they realized how much they would have to pay actors for this. I mean, like 8 seasons over the course of like 8.5, 9 years. I mean, like some people started that show that were still on it and they've been on the show pretty much for literally half their lifetime right now.
Yeah.
Like
that's the Stark kids, like
exactly,
for sure.
Like that's pretty heavy. And I mean, like it's impressive that there were no people that were killed off specifically just because the actor wanted to leave and do more stuff. I mean, like pretty much all of the full-grown adults, thanks to the show, got a lot more offers from movies and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And they all stuck with it for the entire thing, which that's not the case for a lot of television shows. Like, people get bigger and better opportunities that pay them more and more money. They don't necessarily want to stay on the show that made them famous. And I mean, for good reason. At the end of the day, being an actor, I feel like, is like both having a job and running your own business where your product is yourself and your performance.
Right.
And I definitely have a lot of respect for actors like the cast of Game of Thrones, like Chris Pratt, who once they become super famous still stay on the show. It made them famous.
Yeah.
Because I like the fact that shows that they have just a love for what they're doing and the characters that they play. I mean, like Chris Pratt said, it never even entered into his mind to leave Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
After like he got thrown like millions upon millions of dollars from Marvel and then Jurassic Park and like became a very famous person when he was just the comic relief guy on Parks and Rec beforehand.
Yeah.
Like, so I definitely have some respect for that.
I mean, it's interesting that, like, Game of Thrones, do you think Game of Thrones is going to go down as the most, like, the biggest TV show ever?
It might.
Or up to this point?
Up to this point, I would say so. Like
just in terms of name recognition?
I would think so. And I think that there's definitely ones prior to it. Like, there's always there's certain shows that basically just control the air for the years that they're on. Game of Thrones is definitely one of them. Lost is definitely one of them. Breaking Bad, Mad Men. I mean, even for a spell, The Walking Dead, though The Walking Dead's far beyond that point now. I can't believe it's still in the air, in all honesty. Like,
yeah.
I kind of forgot about the show after I kind of fell out of it, in all honesty. Grey's Anatomy is still airing, too, which is really crazy to think about. Yeah.
Patrick Dempsey needs more money?
Oh, no, he's off the show now.
Is he really?
Yeah,
okay.
I want to say the only original cast member still on the show is Meredith Grey.
Okay.
But and these are all in at least in those last two, those are shows that definitely in their time drew a gigantic audience. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily say they were in those years defining TV shows. They're not to the level of shows like Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad. Probably one of the earliest ones was The Sopranos. I mean,
yeah.
That was.
I mean, talk about
huge.
HBO shows.
I know, right? I mean, when you look at that, about half of the list of that decade's defining television programs, half of them are HBO.
Yeah.
It seems like, and you might get a handful thrown in from Showtime or AMC, but AMC largely just hires people that used to work on HBO shows to make shows for them, which is a smart move on their part.
I mean, yeah, it seemed to work out for them.
Yeah.
And then of course you have shows like Friends.
Yep.
Or Sex and the City.
Yeah.
It seems, or Seinfeld.
Yeah.
It seems, or The Simpsons, that's still going on, I think.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably just going to always exist.
In South Park as well. Yeah, I mean.
I feel like sitcoms fill a different role in television.
Oh, for sure.
They're, especially when you get the big sitcoms, specifically Friends and Seinfeld, I feel especially are shows where they become collectively society's inside jokes, almost.
Like a shared language almost.
Exactly, yeah. The fact that you can still shout different Seinfeld quotes to people that maybe haven't even seen an episode of Seinfeld know what a Festivus for the rest of us is.
Yeah.
It's definitely very different from the major drama shows, I feel where the drama shows are almost more they're definitely collective storytelling, obviously. It's serialized dramas. Whereas I feel sitcoms are a lot more I don't know, maybe just I don't know the way to necessarily phrase it, but because they make you laugh and you make those references to them, it's almost it's more stress relieving, I guess.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, like it just feels nice to smile and laugh at something.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think it's possible that one of the things that's really fun about sitcoms is it's easier to form a connection over a sitcom than over a drama, because like you have more tropes to work with, like more iconic stuff to be just like, bantering back and forth with people. Like you can throw out quotes and people will know where they're from. Whereas from a drama, it's like, you have every once in a while you'll have like a one-liner that's like, oh man, he just kicked that guy's ass and he like dropped a bomb and then it was really awesome, but like it doesn't have the immediate recognition and like the bonding aspect.
Yeah.
That the sitcom will. Yeah. Can't say I've thought too much about that in depth. But yeah.
I did once when I realized like over half of what I watched was sitcoms. At least would go back and rewatch and things like that. And part of it's also the shorter episode structure that sitcoms tend to have. I mean, it's a lot easier to like watch an episode of a sitcom when you get home from work.
Yeah.
And then go to bed.
You can dip back in.
And because of the fact that it is, for the most part, not serialized. On top of that, like if you fall asleep halfway through an episode or something like that, or something else pressing is happening, it's not nearly as big of a deal as if you were to be like halfway through an episode of Game of Thrones and all of a sudden get called away for something. Like
things might be completely different in like 2 episodes.
Exactly. I mean, like the only serialized sitcom I can really think of off the top of my head is like strictly serialized, not just has a running plot line. Most still do is The Good Place. Like that's one where like straight up like things happen in it. It's a sitcom, but it seems to be written and played off like a drama.
Yeah,
which is really cool.
Right.
Really cool. But
that's super well done. I haven't kept up with it. I watched I think the first season, maybe season and a half, but like that was just like a really excellent show.
It really is, and I guess that they're in between seasons now, but the next season, season 4, is gonna be the last one.
Okay.
And like the producers and showrunners have said, they're like, we started out with this vision. It was 4 seasons long. It was a story, and we're sticking to that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, good.
I can definitely respect that.
Like, I don't want this to be one of those things that just gets overplayed and overtired. Like the fact that like one of the big ones that comes to mind is the X-Files was incredible through the run that was planned out, and then when the network was like, we need more X-Files, making us so much money, they're like, see, the thing is, and they're like, look, we don't care, give us more money, and they're like, all right, fine, but it's not going to be good, and then lo and behold, it wasn't good.
Yeah, I can't say I've seen like episodes here and there of the X-Files. It's super strange because I had one friend whose house I would go over to, and there would be just stuff playing on the TV. And so the 3 shows. The 3 shows that I remember watching were Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Band of Brothers, and X-Files. And like seeing specific, like going back through and like I remember seeing this scene.
Oh yeah.
And like it was like 10 years, something like that, like 10 years before. It's like, oh man, this is super strange. But like coming back in, like I had a couple friends that were rewatching the X-Files.
Yep.
And I walk in and it's the same episode that I caught.
Oh, of course.
And it's just like, what in the hell? Forget where I was going with that. But no. Oh, right. Supernatural.
Oh yeah.
I think it's on its final season.
Yeah, it is.
It's what, 14 or 15?
Something insanely long like that, yeah.
And they only plan to go to 5?
Yeah. I stopped watching at 5.
Yeah.
5 was a very, so season 5 came out shortly after Heroes ended, I feel like, or at least like that was when I watched it.
That sounds about right.
And I got so burned by Heroes from like just never being good after season 1, but season 1 being so good.
Yeah.
And also, theoretically speaking, season 1 being a fairly logical conclusion point for the story. And then, like, seeing that and then looking back at the X-Files, which I'd watched beforehand, and knowing that logical conclusion point to the X-Files was at the end of season 7, and they had season 8, which actually had a pretty decent conclusion ending point in the season 8, too. Even though the rest of the season wasn't very good. the season finale would have been an incredible series finale, and they made a season 9, which was just horrible. And the series finale was okay, but a lot less satisfying than it would have been if they'd ended it at the end of season 8 or season 7.
Yeah.
And like those things into consideration after watching the season finale for season 5 of Supernatural, I was like, all right, I'm good with this. I am all set from here. And I've heard from people who have kept current with the show that there's like 2 very rough years after that, and then it does get good again, but that kind of just ebbs and flows in its quality.
Yeah.
Which I feel like when you've been on for over 10 years or something like that, that's just bound to happen.
Right.
Like, you can't always make good television.
Yeah.
Like,
And I did watch through, I think I watched 11 seasons, 12 seasons of that show. And the thing, it takes a lot for me to watch an entire show. Like it either has to be like I have to either be really into it.
Yep.
Or there have to be things that I've seen, specifically like screen caps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I want to see that in context.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to keep watching this show until I
you
get
hit
there.
That, yeah.
And there were like, I spent a lot of time on Pinterest for, a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of supernatural content.
Oh, yeah.
Screen caps specifically. And so that was basically what kept me in it. Up to that point. And then
makes sense.
Once I caught up to what Netflix had to offer,
yeah,
I'm like, all right, well, I think I watched up to a point and then stopped because they didn't have any more. And then the next season came out and I watched that. And then the next season came out and I'm like, I started watching it and I was like, yeah, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
There's just so little television that I feel compelled to watch at this point. That it takes a lot. Like even a show that I'm really enjoying, I find it difficult to, specifically make time to watch it because there are so many shows. Like there are so many shows, that I haven't seen.
Because now you have not just network and cable, but now all different streaming services having all their own separate things too, and. Yeah, there's a lot of television
out there. There's so much content.
I mean, I only recently watched season 2 of Stranger Things because I saw the trailers for season 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I'm not rewatching season 1 like I planned on doing since I've let season 2 exist for 2 years apparently.
Yeah.
Or like 1 year without watching it at all.
It's hard when you're not able to convince your TV show watching buddy to like watch something that
Yeah. But yes, I mean, half of what I watch nowadays is just the stuff from, like, streaming content websites. Like Netflix, Hulu, HBO, Amazon, I'm not that current on many, new shows airing on television.
I have no idea what's on. I'm seeing stuff from, Lucifer and Legend of Tomorrow.
Yep.
And more Arrow, I guess. I guess that's still on.
Arrow's on its last season, going into its last season. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm still current on is all the CW DC shows.
I fell out of it at season 2.
Arrow gets really bad.
Really?
Really bad. The only reason why I kept watching it was because I was watching all the shows, and since they're all the shared universe, it was just for the context of crossovers.
I feel that.
It got really bad. It got past couple seasons have been better, but really season 1's what was good on Arrow. The rest of it was all decent. Season 2 was all right too. Mm-hmm. And after that, it was a lot more overtired. Whereas The Flash has mostly been good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about The Flash. I never quite got into it, and I think I watched. Honestly, I think I watched one episode of each of the other shows.
Oh yeah,
and I was just like, I see it. I'm good.
Yeah.
I just never went back to it.
The other big thing that's tough right now is as I described to, I've been watching the different shows on DC Universe, and they do an incredible job on that streaming service.
Really.
And I was watching Titans. I was watching Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol is incredible. And I went and put off watching the CW shows, and I went back and caught myself up, and I was like, oh my god, the quality is so much lower on this stuff. So much lower. And it's not saying I still enjoy watching them, but it's just seeing in comparison from other adaptations of like the same company's source material,
Yeah.
it's just like it's really funny to see that. Like it's crazy.
It's wild how like how much better the quality is for a streaming platform.
Right?
Like some of the best shows out there have never been on network television.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
And like occasionally they'll get formulaic, but on the whole,
Yeah.
the best stuff is still. I mean, Amazon's had a rough go of it. I feel like their stuff is, well,
I feel like lately they've definitely been getting a lot of recognition, like Marvelous Miss Maisel especially. That's up for like 30 Emmys or something crazy like
nuts.
that. Like a very large number of Emmys
Yeah.
for one project. Like
The first season was excellent.
Yeah.
I think I watched like a couple of episodes of the second season, but like the first season was solid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have like they have the Lord of the Rings license
Oh, right, for the show,
pre-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. And apparently, like it's got a massive budget.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure.
Like an insane.
Well, the big thing is that like Amazon is a streaming service, and like for like original content, especially, it's a different thing than any of the other companies because it's not the only business
so
that they
diversified.
are. Yeah, exactly. It's like the Von Trapp Family Lodge in Vermont makes their own beer, and their beer is actually very cheap despite being very high quality.
Right.
It's because that's not the primary business of the Von Trapp Family Lodge.
Yeah.
And whether or not the brewery exists 10 years from now, Lodge still will and still be able to pay back on any loans, so they can get decent rates on loans for stuff. And I feel like as far as Amazon's concerned, yes, Amazon has original films, original TV series. It's also a gigantic online store. It's a producer of tech hardware. Amazon does so many things other than produce original content that I feel like as far as they're concerned, as long as it sounds vaguely like you'll even have one season that has a bunch of people that watch it and gets the money for that, that's enough to greenlight it with however much money, because Jeff Bezos is essentially made of money now. The company's made of money.
Yeah.
That like everything seems to, like for them could be theoretically worth taking a chance on as long as like someone high enough up thinks it sounds good. I mean, the fact that they're now going to have two essentially comedy superhero shows coming out, or they're out. So they've got The Take already, and then The Boys is coming out. Like in a couple of days.
Yeah.
It's like looking at it, it's like wow, they've got two superhero shows, and they're both like kind of satirical, like parodies of the genre. Like,
right. Yeah.
I didn't make the connection until like the most recent time I watched a trailer for The Boys before watching something else, and I was like, wait, don't they already have this show?
It's like, so The Boys to me looks like Hancock crossed with Watchmen.
Yeah,
is kind of how that feels. And
I can see that.
I'm really interested in seeing in giving it a watch. Because I feel like it can do something really special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think other than that, Netflix and HBO are really killing it. I haven't really dipped into Hulu's like exclusive content much.
I have not at all either.
I watched like a couple episodes of Future Man. I'm like, I am out. I can't do this.
I really want to watch the Stephen King one.
11/23.
No, the anthology series.
What's the anthology series?
It's like I think it's called Castle Rock.
Okay.
And it's like all stories, like independent stories that take place in the titular fictitious town that like half of Stephen King's works in general take place in. And it's all stuff based off his short stories. It was basically Hulu's answer to Amazon's Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, which is Amazon's answer to Netflix's Black Mirror. Like, because everyone's got to have one little thing there. Like,
yeah, everyone's got to have their fantasy series. Everyone's got to have their like detective series. Everybody's got to have.
The thing that's so crazy about that is that like everywhere else in the world, it's only Netflix and Amazon.
Really?
There's not all these other streaming services. Like,
can't get HBO. Wow.
Well, there is HBO.
Oh yeah.
But like, because that's its own separate network. But like the CBS All Access with its original content, like the Star Trek shows and Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
All those just get streamed on Netflix or Amazon. Like, because CBS All Access only exists in America. DC Universe only exists in America. So all that content goes to Netflix or Amazon or HBO, because HBO is Warner Brothers.
Right.
And Warner Brothers owns DC. And it's just like, and it's so crazy to think about it. And like, Hulu just announced that they're going to become available in Canada soon. And that Letterkenny is going to be a fully Hulu original series. So that makes me think that Hulu bought Crave.
Yeah.
Which is basically Canadian Hulu already. Like, it's just so crazy to think that, like, most other places, they don't have this, like, streaming war that the United States is going through right now, and so much original content is created by that, too. And, like, it just seems so weird to see, to think that all these things that, for us, are across a bunch of different platforms, and then, like, being like, oh, but it's all just on Amazon here, or it's all just on Netflix. Like, it probably makes Americans look pretty stupid, I feel like, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to everything else.
True. There's plenty of things.
I feel like the world's perception of the U.S. is, it could be better, and I'm not sure that there's anything we can do to fix it.
Probably not.
Like I think it's just a thing that's out there. You know, people, I don't know. That's not really. That's not a direction I think we need to go.
No, it's. I mean, it's not a direction we're incredibly informed in at the end of the day.
Fair enough. Me neither. So we're gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting that, like, the model of streaming services, it's not about purchases. It's about retaining customers.
Yeah.
And, like, getting new ones. And I don't know. Like, I'd be really interested to see, like, the numbers on that, and, like, how it ebbs and flows based on what content is being produced on the service. And, like, cause like, Amazon, it makes sense that they can just, like, produce content. And, you know, cause, like, they have all this money.
Exactly, yeah.
Supposedly. And just, like, but they're getting it from a different source, so, like, it's worth it to them to continue producing content if people are going to maintain their Prime subscription. But it doesn't make sense in my brain to be like, okay, so, like, you're making more content if your subscriber, like, if your whole business model is keeping subscribers. You know, like, I'd be really interested to see if it's like, is it about building your subscriber base? Like, how effective is that? Like, how often does that number go up? Like, you know, supposedly everybody has a Netflix. I currently don't.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to cut down on subscriptions.
Yeah, no kidding. There's too many of them out there right now. There's only more that are being announced. Like,
and I was just like, well, Game of Thrones is over. Guess I don't need an HBO subscription. I already watched Letterkenny, so I don't need my Hulu. Oh man, I didn't get a chance to tell you guys this. I was so pissed. I was watching Letterkenny with a bunch of friends of mine, and we were like, "Oh man, 2 seasons. Like, they must have other seasons." We were trying to get the whole Crave thing set up, and, you know, it's just a disaster.
Of course.
And so I was looking. I was like, "Oh, they have DVDs on Amazon. Hell yeah!" So I'm like, "Hey guys, everyone want to pitch in like $5-10? We can get, like, the other 4 or 5 seasons, whatever it was." 4 or 5 seasons. They're like, "Yeah, all right." And so I'm like, "Cool." It ended up being like $70. I was like, "Oh man, that's pretty steep, but man, it'll be worth it to watch Letterkenny." Literally, like 2 weeks later, they put the rest of the seasons on Hulu. I'm like, "You son of a bitch!"
Oh, that's rough.
I was so pissed.
Yeah, I would be too in that situation.
But then I'm like, whatever. Letterkenny.
It really is. I did see an interesting thing from a YouTuber that I watch, Cody Johnston. He used to be from Cracked before Cracked laid off all of its YouTubers.
Yeah.
He started up one of his series on Cracked. He basically started doing the same thing, which is like a newscaster bit. And
oh, that guy.
Yeah. And he recently had one out the whole streaming war thing. And one thing that was really interesting that he was talking about was looking at streaming services as theaters and how like laws were written a long, long time ago to keep production companies from owning their own theaters. So,
Interesting.
and he's talking about how like what started out as something like really great for independent filmmakers being streaming services, like thanks to Netflix and services like Netflix, films that were screened like once at Sundance or cons that didn't necessarily like make it huge and impress people enough to get picked up by a DVD distributor could now be streamed on these streaming services.
Right.
And because Netflix would see that and be like, well, as long as it's a few viewers, sure, we'll put your thing on our platform.
Yeah.
Like, but they've been doing that a lot less now that they've been making their own content because now all their releases have to be saved for the stuff that they personally make. And I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at it because I didn't really think about that until recently. But it's like, but yeah, like the place that's hosting it, making its own thing, it is kind of similar to what was done way back in the day of early cinema, where like you went to a Warner Brothers theater to see a Warner Brothers produced film. Like,
Interesting.
And I thought that was really interesting, especially because he was talking about it in light of the new Disney streaming service and how it's going to have basically be like its own television.
Yeah.
And with how much they own after the Fox acquisition, I mean, like, the fact that they now own The Simpsons and Avatar now, like, is wild. And one of the things that he brought up was that, like, Walt Disney himself was one of the people pushing for the bill that made it so that studios could not also own their own theaters. And now, like, if you look at streaming services as essentially doing that, Disney's going to become the biggest one of those out there.
Yeah.
Like, they're huge.
Yeah. They literally own, what did they buy? 20th Century Fox?
Yeah.
They didn't buy Fox.
Correct. Yeah. So they bought the film production side of Fox.
Gotcha.
20th Century Fox. So.
But like 20th Century Fox is like one of the major, like one of what, 4?
Yeah.
Major like movie production companies.
Yeah. And after that purchase, the next biggest one is Warner Brothers, and Disney like has so much more content than Warner Brothers does.
Disney is friggin' eating Warner Brothers' lunch.
It's crazy. Well, especially with the re-release of Endgame, and they're like, because we want to beat the money Avatar made, and I'm like, but you also own Avatar.
Yeah, but they want that. They want that like right now trophy, not that
True.
in the past trophy.
I was just when I heard that, I was like, wow, they are literally saying we're re-releasing it specifically because we want you to give us more money. It wasn't even like, oh, we really want to give a theatrical release to like the true director's vision or whatever. It was no, it's literally they said we're releasing this again because we want more of your money, and like people are mostly just like yes, and like, and that's crazy to see how much conditioning there is around that. Like,
people are just gonna. I mean, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
People are gonna go. Like, I didn't go see the like the additional thing. I went like a week. A friend of mine went to basic training and came like before the movie came out and came back, like a month later, whatever it was, 2 months later. And he's like, hey, you guys want to go see Endgame? I'm like, I haven't thought about Endgame in like a month and a half, but sure. Yeah. I'll go see it again. And then they literally, did the release like 2 weeks after that. So I'm like, well, I didn't get to see the additional content, but I was there.
I mean, I didn't watch Endgame more than once, but I've watched many other MC movies more than once in theaters.
Yeah.
Plenty. And like, largely because the theater is a better environment to watch those high spectacle, high special effects movies. Like, it's
a
cool
big screen,
having a
you
giant
get the
screen
audio.
in front of you. Yeah, nice screen, nice audio, full dark room. Like, those are the only kinds of movies I tend to go see in a theater really anymore for the most part. Like, I'm not going to go to a theater for a comedy because the whole point of a comedy can be captured at home.
Yeah.
Just as easily as in the theater for the most part. Like,
I was doing this thing for a little while where I was going to see a movie every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't last long. I watched. I think the movie that killed it for me was Dog Days.
I don't even know what that is.
So it's like Vanessa Hudgens and the dorky guy from Baywatch are in a movie together, and there's like other people. It was not a like. I don't want to say that it wasn't a good movie. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And like I literally went and watched it. I'm like, all right, this whole like every week thing, like I got to be more judicious with how I'm spending my money. This is ridiculous. Yeah.
So when I was doing a similar thing, that was how I first saw Kingsman.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
that is money well spent.
That was money very well spent.
Are you excited for the new one?
Yes. I am sad that it's a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were told there's going to be only one more with, like, the original cast, essentially. Yep. And now we'll have to wait that much longer to see how their story concludes. But at the same time, I'm assuming that it's a prequel because Taron Egerton was busy playing Elton John.
Sure, as he do.
And doing so incredibly. Like, he was so good in that role.
Right.
So I'm just assuming that they wanted to keep the Kingsman franchise still, like, out there. Mm-hmm. But due to scheduling conflicts with their starring actor, that wasn't necessarily possible to continue with that story. And so I get the reason why. I'm still a little bit sad, but at the same time, I'm happy that there's still more content coming out in the first place.
Like, if it's the same level of quality as...
Exactly.
Especially the first one. Like, the second one was good, but, like, the first one really, like, set the bar.
Yeah.
And if they can manage to match that with this prequel, then it's like, you know what? They get a pass for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, like, Disney especially really has, like, everybody basically whipped. Like, they can release a Marvel or Star Wars movie and basically, I mean, not for Marvel, like, not everybody's going to go see it, and not even necessarily for the interstitial Star Wars movies either. But like every numbered Star Wars movie and every Avengers movie, like, people are going to go see, and like it doesn't really matter.
What was crazy when I saw like their schedule of releases for this year, like Marvel's, or no, Disney as a whole.
Oh, Disney.
So between Marvel movies, so like with Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man Far From Home, and then seeing that there's also then Dumbo, Aladdin, and The Lion King on the reimagined versions of stuff.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you have the new Star Wars. I mean,
and then Toy Story.
Like, that's like probably 10 movies that are going to make more money than people thought was possible for a movie to make, even 10 years ago, really.
Right.
Like, that is insane.
Right.
Like, absolutely insane. I mean, I guess that, and I think that the public kind of caught on to that to a point because of from what I heard, Aladdin opening weekend, Aladdin made more money than Dumbo made its entire run. And I think that's because people were just like, there's all these movies that I want to see that Disney's putting out, but I can only feasibly afford to go see like this many of them.
Like a handful.
Like, I'm going to have to choose a couple of them to just wait till it comes out on DVD or digitally.
Or,
like,
I was going to say, subscribe to Disney's streaming service when it comes out in November.
And let's do a subscription to the streaming service. And which, I mean, they're charging not much money for it.
It seems pretty affordable.
Yeah, $7.99 a month.
It's like half of what Netflix is charging.
Yeah, Netflix is like $13 now, which is a lot.
No. What do you think of the live action reboots of Disney movies?
I am kind of on the fence on them. I think that they're kind of in an awkward place because of the fact that, to me, it almost seems like the target audience is the people that grew up with those movies in the first place.
Yeah.
And with a lot of them, it seems very redundant because although there are, like, they do add new scenes and new characters and new songs, at the same time, a lot of them seem to be shot for shot remakes of the animated film. And If the animated film was worth doing that with, then why do you need to do it in the first place? Is the thing that's awkward for me with it. So I know that I guess Walt Disney said that he wanted his classics to get remade every 10 years so that children can always grow up with them. And that's being used by a lot of people to defend Disney basically throwing out a bunch of redundant live action movies that are literally just almost shot for shot remaking everything that they've already done.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that that's not what these movies are being made for. They don't seem to be getting made like specifically for children to watch them because if I had kids, those kids would be watching the animated Beauty and the Beast, not the live action Beauty and the Beast for sure. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the new Jungle Book movie that Jon Favreau did, because that was very different from the original movie. I mean, it had all the recognizable characters, it had the small handful of recognizable songs, but like the story was very different. It was like, because it was probably more so just based off of the original source material.
Yeah, that was a Rudyard Kipling joint, right?
Yep. Yeah, from what it looks like, they're kind of more so going that route with the live action Mulan film as well, which I think that's going to be really interesting to watch. So they're trying to go a lot more like the story of the historical Mulan.
More grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mulan was, I think I can safely say that Mulan was one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite animated Disney movie growing up.
It was very high up there for me. For me, it was Mulan was one of them. Aladdin was definitely one of them. The Lion King was another one. Those are probably my three. Then and probably then Pocahontas also. I really like Pocahontas.
Yeah. Just so like the thing that it was mostly I haven't seen any of the live action ones except for Beauty and the Beast, I think. But the feeling that kept cropping up for me is, and this is something that I experienced seeing productions in like a theater, like stage productions of movies or plays that I've already seen.
Yep.
Is the thing that I keep bumping into is it doesn't compare generally to the thing I've already seen.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't want to be here. Like, the exception, I recently went and saw the final show of West Side Story at Seacoast Rep.
Oh, cool.
And they did a really phenomenal job with it. And, you're still comparing it to the film specifically, because I haven't, I don't make it to Broadway. But the film, it was a quality enough production that the comparisons to the film weren't as intrusive.
Yeah.
But so going back to the animated thing, the thing that I kept bumping into with Beauty and the Beast is like, I never really liked Beauty and the Beast when I was younger.
Yeah.
But it's so much better. Like, I appreciate Beauty and the Beast so much better watching this live action version. And like, now I just want to go watch the animated Beauty and the Beast. And like, that's not what you want from a movie.
Well, I mean, at the same time, maybe it kind of is for them, because you still bought your ticket to go see the live action one, so it still made the quick money there. And now you might go home and watch the animated one if you have the means to. Might have made a sale on a very expensive DVD for them on top of that.
Like, and you might not be able to rent it. You might have to buy it.
Exactly.
Who knows?
And then throwing in the fact that, like, a lot of times there's only certain windows you can even purchase Disney movies on DVD.
They have the whole vault thing. And
yep.
Yeah. Oh, man, Disney's so gross.
Really gross. Especially because of the fact that I still give them a lot of money every year anyways.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
a lot.
It's almost to the point where I feel like we're almost at the point where we have a moral obligation to just like not consume anything Disney and just like take them down, like not even entirely, but like take them down to a point where they can't like be as dominant as they are. Because like it's too much.
Yeah.
Like, they are way too big. They own too many TV stations. They own too many movie studios. They're making way too much money. Like it's not healthy for a company to be that big.
No.
And I don't believe that they feel like they're beholden to their consumers, if you will.
Yeah.
They're just making way too much money.
Yeah.
For that to be any sort of concern.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's. It's one of those things where it's like it's almost like voting. You know, it's like, does my vote matter? It's like maybe not on its own, but you kind of have to do it on principle.
Yeah.
And just if everybody does it on principle, then maybe you'll get somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Disney's kind of wild.
That's basically the main reason why I'm probably not going to subscribe to their streaming service.
Yeah.
Although that said, I'm surely going to benefit from somebody else's. Like, I mean, I live with 4 other people. I'm sure one of them.
Guaranteed one of them.
Yeah.
At least one of them has their own.
Exactly. And like, we've all got the central PlayStation 4 that controls all the different streaming services.
Yeah.
And it feels silly to actually, the only person that lives with us right now that does not have their own Netflix account is Jamie.
Yeah.
And like, I thought about that. I was like, wow, this house gives Netflix a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Like, a lot. But I mean, like, only a handful of us have a Hulu account though. Like, it's Jamie's Amazon account that we watch that stuff through. Like, I've got the HBO account and the DC Universe account. Like, we need to diversify that more and like make it stuff like for the most part, like we're each paying for a couple services.
Yeah.
But then like once we're not all living together, then like which ones am I gonna have? Which ones am I not gonna have?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you guys have a pretty good thing going in terms of roommates.
Yeah.
Got lucky with Melissa.
Yes.
For someone, actually, Melissa and Max, I feel like are really solid roommates for, you know, basically being people that you met through the
internet.
Right. You know, you can't really count on that working out, but it seems to have.
Yeah, I mean, Max was one of 3 people that I think that we saw that we were moving out. And like, it's just one of those things where like, they all seemed like fairly normal people. Like, it's just that like, he's the one we seem to like hit it off with the most.
Oh, yeah.
And like, but yeah, we've got incredibly lucky with both of them as far as like finding roommates and someone that is like literally a complete stranger before moving in.
Yeah.
Like, it is crazy that has managed to work out. And I don't know.
Yeah, because that's the first time that I've even really encountered that in my own, you know, stint as trying to find roommates. Because like everybody until then was either someone that I knew or someone that somebody else knew. And, like somebody that someone else knew is like they knew them.
Yeah.
So that could get a little weird because like they didn't know them as well as they probably should have before they, you know, moved in with them. Had a couple of roommates in my second apartment. Did you and Jake visited, but you and Jamie never did the big house?
No, you were telling us about it though. Yeah.
Freaking massive. But we had 2 roommates that weren't part of, or that, like everyone else that we were roommates with, I'd basically known through high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, strange as it is for being homeschooled, like you actually do meet people that are the same age as you. Mm-hmm. But no, so I had this one roommate, Josh, who was like my literal roommate, like I was sharing a room with him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was a really big room, so, you know, space wasn't really an issue. It was more of a like a lifestyle thing.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I would go to bed pretty regularly, as is my custom, and and he would be up playing video games until the wee hours of the morning.
Yep.
In the room specifically. Of course. And he enjoyed having conversations like late at night. You know, literally as I was lying in bed trying to go to sleep, he would decide that this was the time for conversations. And then yeah, it only got weirder after that. I think I've told the story to a bunch of people about, his whole like descent into getting kicked out of the house. So I'm not gonna repeat that here. I'll tell you off the air.
Right.
But yeah, so and then we had Carlos, who was pretty cool overall. But like in a house full of like super straight edge people, we figure he was a pothead,
Mm-hmm.
like in a major way, but like keeping it on the down low. And we only realized this like afterwards. We're like, oh, like none of us, we're all homeschoolers or whatever,
Yep.
or private schoolers, and we're like, he was smoking weed, and we had no idea. So yeah, no, it's roommates is like an interesting. It's an interesting gig.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So, anything you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Well, no, I don't think so, at least.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks again for listening to the Muddling Through podcast. If you've enjoyed the podcast and want to support it, consider following the various social media pages, subscribing on your platform of choice, and leaving a review where applicable. Thank you and good night.